It's an At the Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show, serving up the hottest sports takes from right here in Cleveland, Ohio. It's your hosts, Noah, John, and Erik.
Welcome into the East Bank Sports Show. Boys, John and Erik. Guys, how are we doing?
Feeling good, brother. Good to be with you.
Yeah, happy days, man. Feeling good.
Well, if you two are ready to get right into it, I'm ready to get right into it because we have two fun topics to talk about today. But first, a favorite in my idea, at least, of last week's episode, 30-second takes. Talk about something Cleveland real quick. John, we'll start with you since you were at the game, and so was I. 30-second takes, thoughts on the Cavs 2 games into the playoffs. Go.
I absolutely love it. I think they're playing great. They are winning by a wider margin and feeling greater command than even the score dictates. But we all know this season is going to come down to the second round. So I'm hoping to get through Orlando. But I've been really happy so far. The crowd was lit, and Cleveland sports fans can get mad at anybody, man. They hate Franz Wagner. I'll tell you that right now. So so far, so good.
Fantastic. Erik, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's been good so far. It's hard to tell whether or not our defense looks good or Orlando's offense just looks terrible. Frankly, they're not shooting the ball very well. They're not really a shooting team, but their perimeter shooting's terrible. There's still some things that I don't like. I don't like some of the rotations, some of the stuff that that we've talked about in the past. We're not moving well off the ball on offense. It seems like we go stagnant in the third quarter every single game. I don't like those things. For how much of a perimeter shooting team we are, I wish we'd set some more off-ball screens. There should be constant movement, and I don't see that. But that said, it's hard to argue. You know, Mitchell came out really hot in game 2. Everybody's looking pretty good, and biggest shout out so far of the series is Jared Allen. That man has stepped his game up in a way that we were really kind of begging for last year, and he showed us what he's capable of. And I don't know if we'll get past a second round or not, but I think we look a whole hell of a lot better than we did.
Yeah, and another 20 seconds on that one, even though that's now a 50-second take. Everybody
and
was
a minute take from Erik as well, just so you guys know. Just throwing that one out there too, throwing the shots early on this episode. But go ahead, John.
Everybody was a little bit like whiny and not feeling great about the whole like losing the last game of the season to get to play Orlando. It looks pretty smart now. I'll just leave it there. We still got to win 2 games. I'm not counting my chickens, but I'd sure as hell rather be playing this team than any of the alternatives.
My 30-second take, I'll make it a 10-second take, so we're not wasting any more time. I said it on the regular edition of the East Bank Sports Show. Everybody needs to sit back and apologize to Jared Allen because that man is, in fact, not soft. That being said, let's go into our first topic of the day. Our first topic of the day is the namesake of this video. And, you know, I'm curious because I thought we were all going to agree when me and Erik were talking about it in the office. I thought we were all for sure going to agree. But it sounds like that isn't. You know, we talked before we start the show and everything. So, who is Cleveland's biggest rival in sports? John, I let you start 30-second takes. Erik, you can start this segment off. Go.
Biggest rival in Cleveland sports. First of all, I think it's important to talk about what a rivalry is and what it isn't. A rivalry is about, more than anything, probably location and then history, right? So there's a lot that goes into a sports rivalry, especially when you're in a town like Cleveland with a really rich sports history. Back in the day, there was also class that went into it. You know, your average everyday worker would have been an A's and a Raiders fan, whereas your boss was a Niners fan and a Giants fan. That was more of like a 70s thing. I think that's changed. It's not really the case anymore. These days, more than anything, I think rivalries are based mainly on hate. They thrive on hate. You know, I go to a lot of these games, and it's easy, I think, for us to probably say that the biggest Cleveland sports rival in rivalry is Browns Steelers. It's been a rivalry for decades. It's been a little one-sided throughout our history of the rivalry. But I would
Especially
argue,
mine.
yeah, and I would argue that that's really not our biggest sports rival. I think it shifts over time too. When LeBron was here in Cleveland, I think the biggest rivalry was probably Golden State. It's kind of easy to forget because it's been a few years, but just how much we hated Draymond Green, just how much we hated Steph Curry at the time, even though I'm a Steph Curry fan. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here because they're not necessarily Cleveland, but I think the biggest sports rivalry in Cleveland and in Ohio, and perhaps in sports in general, is Ohio State and that team up north. First of all, when it goes back almost a century, how can you argue that it's not the biggest rivalry? It's been a little one-sided towards us in the more recent future, but then they just rattled off 3 straight wins against us, or two straight wins. And now, after only 2 wins by Michigan, we're talking about, should we be replacing our head coach and what are we doing wrong? I think we turned that around this year. That's a different story. There's real hate there, though. First of all, Michigan fans, like I say about Pittsburgh fans all the time, they are delusional. They are some of the worst fans I've ever met in my entire life. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know ball. Where were they when we were winning like 13 of 14? I don't know. They've certainly crawled their way out of the woodwork. But I think the reason that is a bigger sports rivalry, in my mind, is that it comes down to expectation a little bit. When you go into an Ohio State football season, the expectation is that you win. And I don't just mean against Michigan, I mean against every single team. The expectation is a national championship. And if you don't reach that season is a failure. When we look at the Browns and the Browns Steelers, yes, it's a rivalry. Yes, we hate the Steelers. Yes, their fans are terrible. And I've seen fights started just because they're wearing Steelers gear into Cleveland Browns Stadium. But it's been so lopsided. A rivalry kind of has to go both ways. I'm not sure that Pittsburgh considers us their rival anymore. If you asked an average Pittsburgh fan, I wouldn't be surprised if they told you that Baltimore was their biggest rival, because Baltimore was the one that could actually put up points and challenge them for the AFC North. I think that rivalry is on its way back, and I think it's just going to grow and grow and grow. But for me right now, and with the history, it's got to be Ohio State, Michigan.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Eric and I are going to agree again. But then let me say, even though I'm going to agree with where you ended up, I'm going to disagree with some of your theses and theories that you used to get there. So I did the same thing as you did. I dug in a little bit and started thinking about, like, over the course of my life, who I hated the most. And I started by going sport by sport, and then checking off teams that either weren't quite there or didn't make sense. I actually wish to God the Guardians had a natural rival, but the Twins and Tigers and the White Sox just don't do it for me. Who could root against the Royals? I mean, it's just a weird division. Smartest thing that the ownership ever did was get the hell out of the AL East and move to the Central. I love it because we can actually win this division. But the Yankees, the Red Sox, in the 90s, the Braves and the Marlins, but you can't have a National League rival, right? So I put baseball out. Old Browns, we talked a little bit about it on other podcasts. There were some times in the old AFC Central where, even though the Steelers were our main rival, we had some really nasty times with the Broncos in the playoffs. We don't need to go any deeper on that one. Three AFC championships. Oddly enough, the Jaguars and like the Houston Oilers, when they became the Tennessee Oilers, there were some moments there where they got pretty heated, but I didn't go that route either. I did start to stumble a little bit. There was a period of time, and when I think about rivalries, actually, Eric, I think you're right. Location matters. I think mostly because geographically speaking, you couldn't travel as much in the old days. So when they started these leagues and these teams, people were playing each other because they were close. But I think more important than location is history. And I also think that you have to play when it matters and that there's something on the line. The Kansas City Royals play the Minnesota Twins 17 times and they're both losing teams, nobody cares, even if they're rivals, right? The the battle for Paul Bunyan's axe and all these college football trophies. Most of these games don't matter. It's the Iron Bowl and it's the game with Ohio State, Michigan. But I did have a very unhealthy hate of the Golden State Warriors for about a decade and for the Boston Celtics before them. I still cannot stand Paul Pierce. He's one of my least favorite players of all time. He thinks he's better than he is, and he thinks he's the reason they won. He wasn't. Another debate for another day. Steelers are the natural answer because we're a football town and we hate the Steelers. But I think for my book, I hate the Ravens more. I lived through the move. I watched them take our team, change them to some putrid purple colors in a town that should know what it felt like because they lost their football team. And not only did they take the team, they took the rivalry with us. I watched Ed Reed and Ray Lewis in the style of football they played against the Steelers and thought to myself, that is Cleveland Browns football. And we were winning 3 and 4 games a year the whole time. I hate the Ravens. I am raised to hate the Steelers. I hate the Ravens by choice. I cannot stand their fans. I can't stand their stadium, the crab cakes, the city of Baltimore. I hate the Baltimore Ravens more than the Steelers. And that said, I hate Michigan more. It is 9:45 p.m. and Michigan still sucks. And I think the reason that that's the biggest rivalry for me is because of what's always on the line. You go back over that 100-plus year history, there have been ebbs and flows and long winning streaks for both sides. Michigan, I think, is still the winningest football team in college football history. But for one of the two teams in that game, there is almost never a year where that game doesn't have national championship implications. Whether you're going to name one, whether it's a one game, whether it's a playoff, whether you have a Big Ten championship or not, the Saturday after Thanksgiving at noon, Ohio State's going to play Michigan, and it's going to matter to a lot of people. And for those reasons, I think Ohio State-Michigan is the biggest rivalry for Cleveland sports fans, even though they're not in Cleveland, with a very strong honorable mention to the Baltimore Ravens and the Golden State Warriors for like 7 years.
So that's interesting that that's where you guys took it, because I would agree, 100% with you guys as well. But I thought of it more so in, the scope of Cleveland sports, right? I don't claim Ohio State as a part of the Cleveland sports fandom because, people move here, fall in love. I'm talking professional in my mind, right? And I have no knocks on either of your answers because I do not like Michigan either. Obviously, we're all Buckeyes fans. That comes first in my mind too. To me, the greatest rivalry in Cleveland sports history will forever and always be the Browns and the Steelers, not because of the records, not because of anything other than you down there, both of you, were raised to hate the Steelers, correct?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It's a handed down tradition that has not escaped any of us. And as a guy that played with a lot of people from PA at his college football, on his college football team, they hate us too. They act like they don't care about us, but then they'll start spinning it and be like, well, you guys have sucked. Well, you guys lost in the playoffs against us, so it doesn't matter. Well, you guys haven't ever won a Super Bowl. But then when you start being able to rebuttal it in recent times, because we have objectively been, at least on their level, if not a little better, depending on what the season is, they have nothing but to throw the same insults they've been throwing around since 2006, when, in my case, we were all 6, 7, 8, 5, in that age range. You don't even remember who the 53-man roster was. Who was the right guard on that roster? If the Browns won a Super Bowl, I'd know that roster front to back, whether I was 3 or 23. Besides the point, I just think if you're talking about the scope of Cleveland sports, right, and you put Columbus and you put Ann Arbor to the side and you're thinking just Cleveland, there's nothing that embodies it more than the Cleveland Browns versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it is always, knock down, drag him out. We hate each other. Even when we were bad, AB, remember when he cleated, wasn't it our punter trying to hurdle him? And that was a big thing.
So, and it wasn't even a penalty.
Right. And everybody was
No.
up in arms about it. Like, in terms of Cleveland sports, the first thing that comes to mind is I hate the Steelers and the Steelers hate me, and they can go screw themselves for all I care. So that's kind of my take, guys. I'm going to open the floor up to you on your thoughts about that and kind of what we talked about so far.
Well, to your point, Noah, I will say that I've long said I don't have kids, but I said if I ever did have kids, I'm not taking them to a Brown Steelers game, at least when they're young, because
Right.
the things that I've seen over the years, including when I was a kid, growing up going to Cleveland Brown Stadium and watching that game, are things that I would not want to expose my kids to. Yes, a lot of it stemmed from Steelers fans being too cocky and too loud. Whether or not that constitutes being punched in the face, I don't know. I'm not here to judge those situations. My point is, though, yeah, that rivalry certainly runs deep. And can we just talk for a second about how one of the worst things in the world is a Steelers fan who is also a Buckeye fan? I don't understand how that works. You live in the state of Ohio, yet you're a Steelers fan. I can only surmise that you're a front runner. I'm speaking very specifically to a friend that I have that is a Steelers fan, and I'm pretty sure his parents are Browns fans. So it's completely inexplicable. I don't understand it. Come on,
It's
pick a side
that
here.
it's that Youngstown, Warren area of Ohio that just decides we're going to claim the Steelers because
That's
they're
true.
better
This
at
guy
football.
lives in Columbus, though.
I don't want
It's
to.
insane.
I don't want to like. It's not a one-up kind of thing either, but there are Steelers Michigan fans. You talk
Ugh.
about something I don't understand. There are a lot.
Rent free. The state of Ohio is rent free in those people's heads.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't get twisted. No, I hate the Steelers. I can
Yeah,
work myself
100%.
into a lather thinking about. I mean, I would punch Ben Roethlisberger in the face if I saw him on the street. I still hate the dude. He hasn't even played in forever. The reason I went with Ohio State Michigan is because, again, I think a piece of the rivalry, when it's the pinnacle, is what's on the line and what matters. You lose to the Steelers twice and win a Super Bowl. You're not going to lose to Michigan and win a national championship very often. And the one time where you do, Michigan goes on, wins the Big Ten, you come in at 4. Even if you win a national championship, people are going to go, yeah, national champ, hell of a season, still lost to Michigan. Like,
Right.
nobody's going to remember. I remember the games and the moments. I remember there's a great game. You guys should check out the YouTube clip after the podcast. Eric Metcalf took 2 punts back against the Steelers in the old stadium to get us a victory. And when he took the second one back in the game, the crowd was so loud you could not hear the TV announcers. Like, I love the Browns-Steelers rivalry, and you're right. It's not a bad rivalry. I get up for it every time they play. But like I said, you could lose to the Steelers twice and go 15-2 and win the AFC and win a Super Bowl, and nobody's going to remember you lost to Pittsburgh.
Except Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh will let you know that you lost to Pittsburgh. Trust me on that. Twitter
There's an
is
interesting
a
twist
dangerous
here.
world.
I don't want to take us in the wrong direction, but there's an interesting twist that I like about the Buckeyes too. I travel a lot for work, travel a lot for pleasure, been all over the country. And when you say you're a Guardians fan, people are like, yeah, cool, we can get behind them. We remember the whole Cubs thing. And when you say you're a Browns fan, they're like, oh, bless your heart. We're rooting for you when we're not rooting for our own team. You say you're a Buckeyes fan or we're an Ohio State thing, we are the New York Yankees of college sports.
100%.
No doubt about it. When you look at
Bama.
it is us against the world. And for some reason, people hate Bama less than they hate us, but they cannot stand the Buckeyes. And as a somewhat downtrodden Cleveland fan that's on the uprise, I kind of like being the villain for once. Like, I have one team where I'm like, yeah, that's right. You're sick of us, and we're going to be back next year, so buckle up.
Yeah.
I will say, though, of all the games that I've been to in my life, because I do agree, I think Ohio State Michigan is the biggest rivalry, maybe in all of sports, period. That said, the Browns game when we got our first win after going 0-16 against the Jets, when Baker comes in, that is the loudest I've ever heard any stadium at any point in my life. I've never been to another game that eclipsed that moment. And on the whole, I think that Browns fans, the diehard fans that would pick Browns as their number one team, I think they're more rabid than Ohio State fans. I think the Ohio State fandom is there and it's all over the world. I went and watched Ohio State Michigan when I was in London at a bar of all places. And it was a rivalry of who could bring in the most canned food. It was like a 2-story bar. They travel extremely well, as do the Browns. But I think as far as the fans go, I feel like Browns fans are much more rabid than Ohio State fans.
Yeah.
So something I want to do with this, and I kind of hinted towards this when I thought we were all going to pick the Steelers until you guys thought bigger, which is fair. I 100% agree with both of your takes. So on a scale of 1 being no rivalry whatsoever and 10 being Ohio State, Michigan, I'm going to go through a couple different rivalries. John, you mentioned a couple. Eric, I think you mentioned a couple too, that I think of when I think of, Ohio sports rivalries, more specifically Cleveland sports rivalries, and give me a rating on that scale of where you think that'll be. And then I'll say mine at the end. So we'll start with what I think is the second most obvious one if you're talking Cleveland and not talking Browns, I guess, because I'll get to that one in a second. Cavs Warriors, especially during the LeBron era, scale of 1 being no rivalry, 10 being Ohio State, Michigan. Eric, where do you put it?
I would probably put that at I'd probably put it at an 8.7. And hear me out on that rating.
We're going granular already. First one, it's granular as hell. I love it. Go ahead.
You have to. Just hear me out. I put it 8.7 because I actually put the Cavs Celtics rivalry as bigger than Cavs Warriors. And here's why.
Since you brought it up, give that a rating too. We'll do both because
Okay.
I think it'll be interesting for me. Because I was younger during the Cavs Celtics thing. So I don't remember it as much as I do hating Steph Curry. Go ahead.
So I gave 8.7 for Cavs Warriors. I'll give 9.2 for Cavs Celtics. The reason is the Cavs Warriors, apart from 2016, it always sort of felt a little inevitable that the Warriors were going to win. After 2016, they add Kevin Durant. Even during 2016, we went down 3-1 to one of the greatest shows on the hard court of all time. It just felt like we were only ever there because LeBron and Kyrie were doing their thing. They had a much more cohesive team. When we played Boston, it just felt like there was a bit more parity. Yeah, once again, LeBron's dragging, kicking, and screaming teammates that we don't even talk about much anymore there with him. And they had that big three. But I know you said you weren't really, you were younger during those days. I remember vehemently, like John was saying, hating Paul Pierce, hating Kevin Garnett, hating to a lesser extent Ray Allen. Like those guys they got under your skin, kind of like those Detroit teams back in the day. They managed to find a way to get under your skin in a way that the Warriors didn't. Yeah, the Warriors, it was a rivalry and they were annoying and you hated guys like Draymond. You hated Curry's little shimmy bullshit, but for whatever reason, the Celtics, they were just more of the Yankees of basketball at the time. And maybe, again, that goes back to history. The Celtics are an incredible historic organization that had a lot of success throughout the years, them and the Lakers, so they're kind of easy to hate. But I just remember feeling a lot more hatred. And obviously, it's a complete personal perception thing, but I remember hating those guys way more.
John, go ahead with both of your ratings. Start with the Warriors, then do Celtics, or however you need to break that up, I guess. I won't give you too much structure.
Yeah, similar scores, but I flip them. For one of the reasons I mentioned earlier, rivalry is what's on the line, and the Eastern Conference Finals doesn't rank for me as high as the NBA Finals. We also didn't play the Celtics 4 years in a row. LeBron was dragging awful teams there. One of your reasons you used, Eric, was going in the Golden State series, which I'm going to disagree with also here in a minute. But going into the Golden State series, you said, we kind of knew they were going to win kind of feeling. I had more of that feeling with Boston and just hated him because Paul Pierce thinks he's God's gift to basketball, and he's not. And I got pissed because we lost, and then we lost LeBron. And it was more about the whole body of work. We played the Warriors for 4 straight years in the damn finals, like championship or not. And I would disagree with we thought we were going to lose to the Warriors. I'm in the minority on this. I've heard Stephen A. talk about it. I've heard friends and family talk about it. But this whole narrative that the Cavs are lucky they got one, to me, is horseshit. Not only did they earn it because they came back against the greatest team ever and did what they had to do and earn that championship, but LeBron James was up in 2015, 2-1. when Kelly Olynyk had ripped Kevin Love's arm out of socket, Kyrie Irving cracked a kneecap, and we still were up 2-1 with just LeBron. So everybody has this narrative that the Cavs are lucky they got one. The Warriors are lucky the Cavs were injured because they'd have been looking at having that team with all those great records and players and losing 2 straight times to the Cavaliers had we been healthy the year before.
I agree with that.
Thanks, Erik. I don't think the Celtics were quite on that level. Now, I hate Paul Pierce worse than I hated Steph Curry. Yeah, for sure. But think about, I feel like it's hard to go back in your mind. But think about, we lose 1 year in 15 when we think we could have won. We're going down 3-1 the next year, not knowing we're going to win the finals. We have faith, but we don't know what the hell is going to happen. And when Draymond Green hits LeBron, that moment of rage, when you got to beat us on the court, beat us off the court, Draymond Green, the world's greatest, I can get fired up thinking about that right now. So I would put Warriors whatever you said, 9.3. I'd put Celtics 8.8. With the firm Steelers in there between them, probably at 9. Again, because just there's not as much as
interesting.
In the heat of not right now. The Warriors aren't even in the damn playoffs anymore. It's over. But in the heat of the moment when the finals were kicking, we had one, they had one. Yeah, I think I hated the Warriors worse than I hated the Steelers.
That's fair if you're talking in the moment. I petition, besides that Browns comment, to change my answer to John's answer because he made a lot of smart points.
So every point that John made for flipping it, now I am going to say that I'm going to knock the Celtics thing down a couple pegs. I'll put them at a 7 for me personally, just because
you were 7?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. That's an age that comes to mind. No, I don't like Paul Pierce. I remember vividly, story time real quick. I had a vintage jersey from my high school, then elementary school. I went there all K through 12. That looked just like the Celtics classic jerseys with the white with the Celtics across, except it was my high school's name and navy blue instead of green. I wouldn't wear it for months because it looked like a Celtics jersey. So there was still disdain in young Noah for the Boston Celtics. And there still is to this day. I think they're overrated, and I don't think they're coming out of the East this year. Besides the point, Ray Allen is also one of my favorite, retired players in the NBA. So there's a soft spot for him there just because I liked him on the Heat, even though I hated LeBron on the Heat. With that being said, I still, to this day, think Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Stephen Curry. I was a KD fan before he went to Golden State. I burned the jersey. I didn't burn the jersey. I threw away the jersey. I got rid of all my KD shoes. I was in that genre, that area of time where everybody was wearing KDs and, your cargo shorts with your high Nike Elite socks. Got rid of all the shoes. I wouldn't even reconcile the thought of liking KD anymore when he went there because it was the Warriors. I put the Warriors at a strong 9.5. I put the Celtics at the 7. Even to this day, even though there isn't much of a rivalry anymore, when we beat the Warriors in the regular season or something like that, it's still got your ass.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair to that, they've done a hell of a job keeping that core team together, so they're still really easy to hate.
100%. One, I want to bring up, this is a personal rivalry to me because of a recent series for the Guardians, and I want to give you guys a history lesson. I don't know if you know this. I didn't know this. So there is a considered rival between the Yankees and the Guardians, correct? I think we all kind of agree that. I think the Yankees are universally hated, but there's a considered rivalry because in 1920, a Yankees pitcher hit one of our batters in the head and killed him.
Yeah, Ray Chapman, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I want to know.
I wasn't alive, Noah. I hear that coming next, but I remember the story.
So I want to know, and we can, be a little bit quicker of this because I think this one is a little further out there for all of us. So I want to just see where it places, especially because I was at the Sunday and the Saturday Yankee Guards games, and there was a grown man with, I say a grown man, like I'm not a grown man now, but you know what I mean? A 38-year-old man with children,
Shots fired.
with his kid in his hands, yelling at Guards fans that were chanting "Yankees suck" after we beat them in extra innings. Well, at least we won the series. And his wife is like telling him to stop. So I've always had disdain for the Yankees just because they're the Yankees. Where would you guys rank them in terms of a rival for Cleveland, especially because we were in their division at one point, right?
I put them at like 7.5 or 8. I mean, they're up there. Like, that's our biggest baseball rival. I just don't think they think of us as rivals. They have like bigger fish to fry. But it has the element of relative proximity, a history of being in the same division. And when we play the Yankees, it matters a lot. Like, one of my favorite sports memories of recent history is the Frankie Lindor grand slam off the top of the foul pole against the Yankees. Like, I was going berserk. And that comeback, I think it was 2 years ago, we had in the ALDS. We were down like 7-2 and came back in the ninth inning and won. My wife and I were at that game, and we were getting into it with the Yankees fans like you would a Steelers fan at a Browns game. It's a rivalry. I don't think it rises to the levels of Warriors, Cavs, or Browns, Steelers, or Browns, Ravens, or Ohio State, Michigan. But, I mean, if it's October baseball and you see New York Yankees up there, you bet your ass it means something. And I can go back to the 90s too. Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, like Sandy Alomar got Mo Rivera going for a close one year. I think it was the year we went to the World Series. Like, there's some bad blood with the Yankees from a Cleveland baseball perspective for sure. We're just not in their division. And I think Red Sox, Yankees trumps Guardians, Yankees for sure.
100%. Eric, any input there?
Yeah, I mean, I think this comes down a little more to hating the prom king kind of thing because, listen, I'm going to say something really unpopular and I'll see myself out as soon as I say it. I've always been kind of a closet Yankees fan, and I know that's an unpopular take.
That's terrible.
Hold on.
That's terrible.
Let me finish. For me, it's the history. For one, I'm a big history guy, but especially when it comes to sports, Mickey Mantle's one of my all-time favorite players. What he was able to do was simply incredible from both sides of the plate, by the way. I still think that anybody after Roger Maris is the one that should have the asterisk and not Roger back in the day. There's just so much history there, right? You have some of the best players ever to play the game, the 27 world championships. I would say that we consider them a rival because they're good and because they're easy to hate. I think a rivalry has to go both ways. I think it's obvious that, Yankees Red Sox is one of the biggest rivalries in sports. Indians or Guardians, Yankees, not as much. I think it's just a team that's easy to hate because of the success they've had. And it's easy to be envious because of guys like Jeter, and you mentioned Mo Rivera, and it's a little sweeter when you get one off of them because of that. Look at the rockin' the baby, rockin' the cradle home run celebration, and then them mocking it back when they went on to beat us. So there's some bad blood there. I'm just not sure I'd elevate it quite as high as in the sevens for a rivalry.
So what's that number? Just throw it a number before I go on mine.
I'll say 6.4.
6.4. Okay, that's similar to where I'm at. I put the Boston Celtics at a 6.4. I was going to do like 6.8 for the Yankees, solely because of everything we already kind of said. We're not in the same division. The rivalry is there. We do hate them. We're not their number one rival. I'd argue they're probably our number one rival because I don't see one in the Central that's really our number one rival. Maybe
that's a good point because, I've been to a lot of baseball games in my life, and the most contentious that our fans have been against the Yankees. I've seen it when Giambi was playing for the Yankees, a guy yelling the whole time, steroids, steroids. I mean, that is by far the most over the top that I've seen Cleveland fans from a baseball perspective. So I think you're right there that they're our rival when it comes to baseball, just because for lack of better rivals, I guess.
Yeah, and to add on top of that, to give the rivalry some more validity too, if you type in who are the Guardians rivals in the MLB, the Yankees will pop up as the number one search for that question on Google. So it's a known fact. It's just, you have your Red Sox, Yankees, you have all of the other teams in the MLB, honestly, against the Yankees because they're just seen as that team. I just dislike them, and I thought the history was cool. And kind of to see, we talked Cavs, we talked Browns a lot. Kind of see where we put the Guardians in there too. With that being said,
there's a honorable mention for the Indians, former Indians. When I was growing up in the 90s, we had a lot of run-ins with the Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey, A-Rod Mariners.
That was a sick team.
In the ALCS, not in the ALCS. I mean, I was at like it wasn't an opening day game, but I was at a game for a benches clearing one because Randy Johnson threw at Kenny Lofton. Like, there's some wild stuff going on at some different times with the Guardians. I just don't think there's been anybody who's been right there. And shout out a couple more honorable mentions. Nobody said, I thought we might hear, I bet there's some people in Washington, D.C. who are Washington Wizards fans who hate the Cavs. I thought they might come up. I thought Orlando Magic might come up.
Toronto?
Toronto's another one.
And then with the college football theme, I get pretty pissed off when we lose to Penn State. It's not Michigan, but I thought we might hit on good one. I thought we might hit on Penn State just because when it's not Michigan, they're you talk about it always mattering and them always being close. Like we always seem to have,
I apologize, Noah, for what I'm about to do, but mini rant. First of all, I'm not a James Franklin fan, never have been. But second of all, Penn State sports should not exist. I'm going to give you an early hot take right now because the fact that their coaching staff could allow a sexual predator to do their thing and not shut that down, and everybody just glosses that over and pretends like Joe Paterno is still one of the greatest coaches of all time, that is sick to me. I don't think they should have a sports program, period.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break to cut to our ad break. And then we're going to come back and have a little topic about how we would make NBA All-Star Weekend better. We'll be right back. And we're back. So, gentlemen, after a nice heated debate about Cleveland rivalries, and honestly, it turned into Ohio rivalries as a whole, I wanted to talk about my first article I wrote for Fans First Sports, our, network for this podcast, the Fanatical Elves podcast, all the guys that we work with here, was about what I would do to make All-Star Weekend better. And I broke it down into 3 different things that I personally would do. So I want to go around the room. I want everybody to kind of throw an idea out, and we'll kind of go roundtable about this and, debate about it and then wrap the show from there. So with that being said, how would you make All-Star Weekend better?
I can jump in on this one. I have 3 key ideas. They're kind of in reverse order. It's the whole weekend, so I started off with some stuff that's not the game. I love the WNBA integration to the skills competition and 3-point shooting. I would do more of that, right? We got Caitlin Clark, Andrew Reese, Leah Edwards, Brianna Stewart, Aja Wilson. There's so many good players in the WNBA who I think could get off a good 3-point shot, who might help with the skills competition. I think that would be a lot of fun. They do it in college. This might not be the world's best idea, but I'd like to see it once. I think it would at least get some ratings and get people interested. We did that whole top 75 players where all the people walked out. A lot of them are way too old, but a lot of them are still good enough to compete. I think if you added a Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Edwards and a Reggie Miller and a Larry Bird to the 3-point contest, you could get some interest from all kinds of people. It's gimmicky. It's a little cheesy, but I would like to see some legends who could still lace them up. Get out there for the skills competition. I'd like to see more WNBA players. Moving forward to some of the other games, little known. I shouldn't
John,
say
not to cut you off, but let's stick one idea at a time and just keep going around so we can all kind of throw something out there for now. And then we'll come back to perfect. Erik, throw me an idea.
First idea is scrapping it entirely. Hold on. Just wait a second.
You guys going rogue today.
I told him I wanted him spicy today, and he just decided to throw the book at the wall, and it was time
you
to
asked
go.
for this.
Yeah, the closet Yankee fan was going rogue today.
I'm not going to live
I'm
that
not
one
the
down.
bad
Listen,
guy for the first episode.
Just hear me out. I have other ideas too, but we'll start one at a time, like you said. We scrap the All-Star game in its entirety. We give these All-Stars a break that they deserve, and we give an all-inclusive paid vacation to, say, Hawaii, Europe, whatever. But here's what we do. We mic them up, we follow them with cameras, and we make it one of the most interesting reality shows of all time. Listen, you got LeBron James on a jet ski by day, LeBron hitting on KD's girlfriend slyly at night. Tell me this isn't like must-see TV. I would watch it. I'd watch the hell out of that. We make it the trashiest reality TV show featuring NBA players. I'm all in.
So, Erik, you reeled me back in a little bit because as you do, because we talk about reality TV all the time. I have a soft spot for reality TV. An idea I had, and this one's probably my most controversial because no league does it anymore. I liked it when the MLB had the winner of the All-Star game decide who has home court advantage in the finals. Call it what it is. It makes both sides want to play because you don't know, even if you're predicted to be the 8th seed right now or in the play-in, if you're going to storm up to the second, and then, of course, you want home court advantage in the finals. It makes your life at least this much easier. I think it's a fantastic way to get the players to buy back into a game that is pull up from half court or highlight dunk for 4 quarters. John.
I 100% agree with you on that. Honestly, it was one of the points that I was going to make. I think we're in the minority because the MLB All-Star game that decided home field advantage was almost universally hated, and that's why they did away with it. Me personally, I think it was a bunch of whiny Cubs fans after 2016, but that's another story. I love it. It incentivizes them and gives them something to play for. I think the problem that you run into is that you could say that, but it didn't give MLB players much, that wasn't a game. It didn't make it compelling baseball doing that. It was just another kind of thing. And I think that's why it was kind of universally hated. But I agree with you 1000%.
John, real quick before you go into your idea, I do want to say too, WNBA integration was the first thing I talked about. My favorite thing from All-Star Weekend this year was the Steph Sabrina shootout. It was the best part. It was the best part of All-Star Weekend, and continuing to do it, it adds validity to a league that is, co-owned by the NBA, and they want to add more validity to, and they're making strides too with, Sabrina being a face, Caitlin Clark going in there, Angel Reese, all the stuff that you said, John. I think it helps with that because, all the eyes are on All-Star Weekend, and you're giving these ladies who are fantastic ball players even more of a spotlight to shine when they're in their off season anyway. You know what I mean? They're post their WNBA finals. So why not continue to show the love to a league that needs it? And honestly, with how the sport's going, deserves it as well. John, next idea.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to do this way, but if this was, pardon the interruption or around the horn, I'm giving myself all the points because getting rid of the game and sending people to Hawaii is as bad an idea as making the All-Star game count for the NBA Finals.
Thumbs upping himself.
Yeah,
can't do that.
Yeah, I'm totally reality. Give me the thing. I say that partially in jest. I don't love either idea though. Second idea. And this one's not fully baked, but little known secret that NBA guys play pickup ball when they're not in the regular season. There are outdoor courts, there's indoor courts, there's like Rucker Park in the Cage in New York. There's Venice Beach. I think the Moss in Oakland gets some pretty good games, but the UCLA practice gym is the best kept secret in the NBA. When these guys are in the offseason, you got LeBron and KD, and people just show up, grab their shoes, grab a ball, stretch, and hoop, like old school like you used to do at the playground. And there's no issue with competitiveness because everybody's trying to win. So I think you can try. Now, this could be a try and fail. Maybe I have to deduct the points I just gave myself. But
He was plus 15 and just lost 12 already because he
right.
discredited himself.
Noah's about to bash the mute button on me, but I think there's an opportunity to. I don't know if you go 3-on-3 half court. It's a little too gimmicky, but I think there's an opportunity to have it be more like a pickup game, and instead of having two teams, maybe have four. And it's just for bragging rights. Like get four captains who get the foremost votes, pick up teams, and then I think there's an aspect of guys just saying, our five can beat your five and just playing good old fashioned basketball. And then like play to 20 or something by ones and twos, like it's on the playground and call it a day. Because the other thing that we saw is like the fourth quarter of the game sometimes is quasi competitive if the game is close. It's just cut to the fourth quarter. Like let's play to 20 and roll it out there with 5-on-5 and play till the best team wins.
Erik, next idea. Are we going to like Hawaii? Well, you already said Hawaii. Are we doing Alaska this time? Are we doing the European tour?
All right.
I'm ready.
Keep your pants on. First of all, I do want to touch on John's just for a second because that was on my list, John. A kind of round robin 3-on-3 or 1-on-1 tournament. I think that would be a lot of fun to see. I think you have two options. Noah had mentioned making them play for something, making it more serious. I think the other option is leaning into the silliness of the game. I'm focusing obviously specifically on the All-Star game itself, but let's mic up the players. Let's live stream the bench. It's already kind of a useless game. So let's do a running clock with no dead ball and live substitutions. And the players on the bench can keep their phones and tweet and Instagram live while they're doing it. And you have running commentary. You can put on ESPN2 and have like Peyton and Eli do the NFL. You can do the same thing with the All-Star game. I think you could just have more fun with it and make it sillier and make it something worth watching.
Something I thought of off of your idea, Erik, is what if you had one guy on the bench for like 6 minutes of game time? They're doing the ESPN2 broadcast. So you have like LeBron and Curry doing a broadcast together.
Yeah,
and then
I
they
would
just
love
get
that.
sucked in.
I mean, listen, honestly, the reason we're having this conversation is because it is so stale. It's not worth watching. Like you had mentioned, I tuned in literally only to Steph Curry and the INSQ 3-point challenge because that was interesting. I think you're absolutely right. Lean into those kind of events because you're definitely losing casual fans, but you're even losing some of the NBA heads because it's just boring right now.
That is something else I was going to say, John. You kind of keep hinting towards, not wanting to lean into this gimmicky or whatever. I think they should lean all the way into it. I'm kind of with Erik on that aspect. Maybe not the gimmick of Hawaii or some of the more outlandish stuff, but why not lean into the gimmicky stuff? I'm all for it. I think very much at face value, Sabrina versus Steph was gimmicky. And I mean, we're talking about how they should be doing more of that. Subjectively. Something else I want to bring up in the major scope of this is I want them to give some sort of financial incentive, which I know is always kind of the answer when you have one of these things, but I want to see the stars in the dunk contest again. You see them in the 3-point contest, but I want more of an incentive to see LeBron, hoist up the dunk contest championship, the trophy. I don't care about turning it on and it being the main event of the night and it's some G leaguer I've never heard of and I'm probably never going to hear of again other than, at bar trivia 10 years from now. That's just kind of where I'm at. I want to see the big names. I want them to be incentivized to want to do it. I don't know what the incentive is for the 3-point because they're not going to get hurt. No one gets hurt in the dunk contest anyway. Has there ever been an injury in the dunk contest? Not on the top of my mind.
I don't think so.
I don't get why we don't have more star power in those events. John, do you have another idea or you want to just start debating now?
I do want to start debating now, but I have one more idea.
Okay, go for it.
This is my biggest idea. You guys tell me if it's my best idea. And it's the reason I keep going away from the gimmicks is because I have one last thought on how to make the game matter. So when we talked about the pickup games and bragging rights and playing for pride and playing for money, playing for your team, potentially to have home court advantage in the NBA Finals. It's all around incentivization. And when I started going down the incentivization rabbit hole, I started thinking about stuff that pisses pro athletes off. It's talking shit and people saying you're better than him, he's better than him. Like you asking who's the GOAT, like people get pissed off having to debate Michael Jordan or LeBron or Kobe because it gets irritating. And I think we can leverage that irritation to bring a widely held argument to the forefront and give a real all-star game one more chance. Instead of East versus West, when nobody gives a shit because East versus West supremacy is really debated and decided in the NBA Finals, not in the all-star game. All I've heard for the last 2 or 3 years is that the Euros and the foreigners are taking over the NBA. So why don't we do USA versus the world in the All-Star game? Players born in the – now, I know with the way things are going in the world, this could be a hot button for a lot of other reasons, but USA-born players versus foreign-born players to see who actually plays the best style and brand of basketball. And the more I got into it, and the more I started thinking about it, I started putting together rosters, and I got real excited. So let me just hang this out there, and then you guys tell me what you think. And let me know if I screwed up, because I didn't check, like, passports and birth certificates. I think some of these guys are foreign, but
at the end of the day, it's for fun. Yeah, you're good. Go.
We got Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, and AD, for instance, versus Jokic, Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, Wemby, Luka, Jamal Murray, SGA, Pascal Siakam, and Rudy Gobert. I don't know. You want to see Jokic against AD and
Wait,
Giannis
did you
versus
miss
AD? Like,
did you miss what's his name? Dallas Star?
Yeah, you didn't even say Luka.
Yeah, Luka. You gotta add
Luke
him in
he's
there.
on my he's on my list. I put Luke Doncic. His name is Luka, but yeah, he's on my list. I might have skipped him over when I was listing people.
All I'm gonna say real quick, Eric, and then I'll let you go because I'm real quick. John Sharp for NBA commissioner. I love that idea. I am all on that idea. I think it's a fantastic way. Go ahead, Eric.
See, I'm going to take the opposite note of Noah, interestingly enough, and say that you can tune into exactly that in July. It's called the Olympics. I think Team USA would absolutely dominate that.
Whoa.
All the foreign players versus the U.S. You think
maybe
it's
not
Team
dominate,
USA.
but I'm still picking Team USA. I'm still picking Team USA. And you guys are full of shit if you say that you wouldn't tune into my reality show, first of all.
I didn't say I wouldn't tune into it. I said I thought
I'd watch it 100%.
You would eat it up like ice cream.
I watched all 4 seasons of Flavor of Love. Like, I watch trash TV. It doesn't make it a good idea.
Hey, listen, my girlfriend got me to buy into watching nightly episodes of Love Island. So, yeah, I would watch it 100%.
I was watching right before we turned this on. I was watching Love Island. So,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, NBA Love Island.
Oh, my God.
Most of them are taken, though. Most of them are taken.
Most of them are taken by like 5 different girls in different cities. We can still have fun with this. Temptation Island, then.
Temptation Island. I'm all there for it. 100%. I disagree with you, Eric. I think it's a fantastic way to, we've talked about the patriotism aspect of sports when we were debating the gold medal versus the Super Bowl thing on the last episode. I think you could get the USA players and honestly the international players to band together because it is a hot button topic right now. There's more international players in the NBA right now than ever before. And to see those two teams square off, I think A, you get a more competitive brand of basketball, and B, I'm tuning in to watch. I'm tuning in to watch it anyway because I'm a sports junkie, but I'm tuning in to watch it and putting my phone down and not tweeting during it because I want to see what happens.
And the Euros play a brand of basketball that's really like the styles are different. Like all of these dudes, like the reason I struggle putting together the roster is you got like 4 7-footers in SGA who can all pass and shoot and spread the floor and drive. But then you got like Devin Booker, alley-oop, LeBron, Kyrie Irving with his bag, like just crossing people. Like you have the best one-on-one American-style players playing the fluid Euro motion. Like I want to see Giannis and Kevin Durant versus, Jokic and Kurt. I mean, it creates matchups that are really fun too. But yeah, sorry.
It would definitely be a lot of fun. And I think you guys are right. I said the Olympics in jest, obviously. I think it would be a lot of fun to watch that. I think it would be closer than I was, the hyperbole that I said, but I still think US takes it.
I think I would argue US would probably take it. I think it would be a really close game if it's full effort, both sides. I do want to point out, too, for the Rising Star game, they do this way, or they have at least in the past. I didn't watch the Rising Star game this year, where it's the international versus the U.S. So as much as I love the idea, it's not a completely original one. It's something they have done before, so why not apply it and see what it does for ratings? I mean, they've tried everything and then some to try to get the ratings to turn around with the Kobe Bryant score and the team captain method, and then the team captain method with them picking them in front of the crowd. So it's a live event instead of some ESPN special at 9 p.m. on a Thursday. I just think it would be an interesting way to try to see what happens again. I commend the NBA for always trying different things. I think that's their strongest aspect of their league, whether it be, a New Jersey alternate every year, letting the players wear whatever shoes and whatever colors they want, because what does it really affect the game? I know it's an old head thought that your shoes should match the uniforms. I don't want to get into that with you guys on this episode. I don't know. I think they're very forward thinking in what sports should and could and are going to look like in the next 50 years. So why not try something like this to invoke viewership at the end of the day? Guys, do you have
in sports?
Yeah, 100%. Guys, do you have any other inputs on the NBA All-Star game before we wrap this thing up?
Can I say just one more thing about, it's not the All-Star game, but because John had mentioned international players, the Australian player for Orlando, the older veteran guy, who is this guy? Like, I swear I play pickup basketball with him, and then all of a sudden he's on Orlando. Like, he does not look like a basketball player. It's the strangest thing watching him out there, just because, I don't know, not to judge a book by its cover. He's a good player, but it's so strange watching him play.
Who are you
There's
talking
a few
about?
of those. There's one on the Magic, too. I was at the game last night. I was like, this dude he's going bald.
That's who I'm talking about, John.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
If it's who I think you guys, I have a quick story that I want to tell, and then we'll go into hot takes.
Joe Ingles.
So real quick before you guys go into it, I obviously I work for the Cavs, and some of the viewers that watch the show, I've mentioned it before. I was on the court helping get the kids that get handed balls in the pregame in position. And Joe Ingles comes over and bounces the ball off of my shoulder, said, shoulder check, step back and hit the three, and then gave me a fist bump and walked away. And that was in the regular season. That wasn't during this.
This just makes me like this guy more.
Right.
So weird. He does not look like he belongs, and I love it.
He had the security guards giving him like the bounce passes and stuff. He was very much about getting all the employees into it, which is nice because a lot of those players don't really say anything, and you're not allowed to say anything to them unless they say something to you. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see that when especially an opposing team comes in and, makes you feel welcomed on the court.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the best and friendliest players in basketball all hail from Australia. It seems like those, or maybe it's just international in general, but it seems like those guys are always cool.
Didn't Kyrie Irving have Australian citizenship and play for them?
He was born there, and yeah, I think so.
I'd give him one big fat ass exception. He's a great player. I don't know if he's the friendliest dude in the world.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, guys, let's get into the end of this. Final thoughts and takes. Give me your hot take for the night. Eric, this is your favorite segment, and I don't even know if it is anymore. You just asked for it one time, and now I've decided it's your favorite. Eric, go. Hot take.
Well, you asked me to be spicy, so I made the whole show a hot take. But
that's
my hot take this week is that we have got to do something about refereeing. It is ruining sports as we know it. And I'm not just talking about one league. I can talk about several leagues that happened in this past week. The Yankees manager was ejected after saying nothing. So to give you a little background, home plate umpire gives him a warning for chatting. The camera then in live time, the camera goes to the Yankees manager and is on him as he's chewing his gum. And you hear the umpire scream at him, "You're out of here," because a fan was chirping at him. He goes up and says, "That wasn't me. I wasn't saying a word." And they had to cut the mics because he said some other words. But you hear the ump clearly say, "I don't care who said it. You're gone." Are you kidding me? That's absolutely ridiculous. Setting that aside, you had the lack of a foul call at the end of the Lakers game last night. It's questionable whether or not that was a foul. I tend to agree with the Lakers. I think it was a foul. Terrible way to end the game. Terrible way to end that UConn-Iowa game we talked about in women's basketball on that screen foul that didn't get the shot off. We've seen it time and time again in every single sport. I was just watching that clip again of the Vikings and New Orleans NFL game where New Orleans just got absolutely hosed and could have probably contended for a Super Bowl that year. It's gotten beyond. Don't even get me started with the Premier League and the number of handballs and lack of calls this past weekend. It's gotten to a point where something has got to give. We have the technology now to make this better. I don't care if you put the ump behind home plate and you have him with an earpiece and he's not actually making the call, but he's doing his gestures. That's great. But we have the technology where this shouldn't be a question. Angel Hernandez should not be calling 3 straight strikes that are 6 inches off the freaking plate. It's not even my team and I'm passionate about it. 6 inches off the plate and ringing batters up, and there's no repercussions. Nothing comes down on these guys. It's ridiculous. They're at the very least, their job security should be in question, because I can't screw up like that at work and expect to have a job the next day.
John, hot take.
That's a good one, Eric. It's a tale as old as time. It's like both the spiciest take ever and I love it, and it's also the same argument we've been having for 50 years. That's a good one. I won't comment on it because it's hot takes. I'll get to mine. I had a couple things in my bag that I was going to pull out, and something tonight got me going, so I'm going to pivot on the spot. My spicy take is that Mariano Rivera is the most overrated baseball player in the history of the league and the Yankees franchise.
What?
Hear me out. What did Eric say? As the closet
He
Yankee?
just went,
I
what?
said what?
Yeah. Here's why. He is a phenomenal closer. I think he had 2 pitches, like a fastball and a cut fastball. He was really hard to hit. We know. Mariano Rivera plays in any other era for the Yankees, most other eras for the Yankees, or plays for any other team. We don't even know his name. I think the closer gets way, way, way too much focus in Major League Baseball. Getting the last 3 outs are tough. I'm not saying there's not a place for him. I remember the Jose Mesa days for the Guardians/Indians back in the day. I'm not saying they don't matter. Trevor Hoffman, the list goes on. But you talk to Yankees fans, and they put Mariano Rivera ahead of everybody but Jeter. And I'm like, how can a man who at best pitches for 1 inning, at best 100 times a year because you win 100 games, some of them are blowouts, they don't even throw that much. This guy pitches like 92 innings over the course of a season, and he's more important than all of those starting pitchers like Clemens and Pettit. It's more important than Jeter with 600 at-bats and all these clutch plays. Like, I'm not saying he's a bum. I would love to have had him on our team. He's the best of all time. But when I say he's overrated, like, he's a freaking closer. And if he plays for the Kansas City Royals, nobody knows who he is because they lose 120 games every year during that run. So good for being the best at what you do, way overrated in terms of you'd never be who you are if you didn't play for the New York Yankees.
To your point, though, sorry, Noah, I can't help myself here. Did you not say when we were talking about rivalries that what's on the line matters? And no man, maybe in the history of sports, had more on the line than when he did enter as a closer because he was on the New York Yankees.
That's true. If you take Mariano Rivera out and replace him with an average starter, he gets 75 or 80% of that done.
Going into my hot take, so we can wrap this up because we'll debate forever, as we have shown in our first 4 episodes of the Office version of the East Bank Sports Show. Cavs in 4. I am going Cavs in 4. The Orlando Magic has shown me absolutely nothing that leads me to believe that they can beat this Cavs team right now. I think the Cavs have been sloppy at times still, like much like they have been since the All-Star break, and are still up 20 points in the game a majority of the time, or even in like the third quarter when we slump, sometimes we are up 20 points. You know, I just don't see anything out of them right now that gives me anything more than we're glad you made it. They're young, they're new, they're fresh. It happens. It was kind of us last year with the gentleman's sweep. I just think we're the better team this year. I think we have more grit. We have more heart. I think we're playing a better brand of basketball than they are. And I think we're pulling out the brooms. Being spicy and a homer is how I like to be when I give a hot take. With that being said, boys, any final comments? Comments, not rambles.
No, I'll bet you a meatball the next time we go out for dumplings that the Cavs lose a game in Orlando. I think JB's going to go JB, and then the Magic aren't going to shoot 31% at home for 2 games.
Fair enough, Eric.
Can I get in on that bet?
All right, guys. With that being said, thank you for tuning in to another Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show. Make sure you check out everybody else on the Fanatical Elves Network. We got John, Jarrell. We have all the guys over there. Sam, a bunch of great guys making great content. Make sure you check out their content as well. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on all our Twitters. Our Twitters are listed here. And until next time, everybody enjoy their week in Cleveland. Go Browns, Cavs, Guards, and everything else in between.